Next up, for our next 10 by 10, is Polly Pagenhart. You might have just heard about her. She is indeed the wonderful person that Alexandra says. She is also an educator, an editor, a conference programmer, has been an educator, editor, conference programmer. She is also a cogitator, a grammar elucidator, and one of the most phantasmically verbose people I have ever met. And really, coming from me, that's quite a compliment. She says things like, I suppose that I blog in my epistolary voice, in passing conversation. I did have to look it up. And as for that blog, Polly is the author of the wildly influential blog, Lesbian Dad, Notes from the Crossroads of Mother and Father. She is coming back to it after having neglected it while she launched Village Q and while she took on a new position about, I think, 6 or 8 months ago, where she has what she calls her perfect job in her new role at Our Family Coalition, directing family support programs for LGBTQ families in the San Francisco area. Please welcome Polly. Let's have a great time.
I had no idea that Alexandra was going to say any of that. I know it sounds hokey and not true, but it's very true, which is just proof about all the serendipity that is at work in this place. And I have to do the picture, so hang on, smile and wave, everybody. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Okay. I have to read what I wrote because if I riffed extemporaneously, I might never stop. So forgive my stodgy reading thing. First, a debt of gratitude. I want to thank you, Elisa, who is backstage there. Lisa and Jory. I want to thank you, Stacy. And thanks also to the very hardworking women behind you for this stage and what it has meant to so many of us over the years. I know firsthand what it takes to make this happen, and it is truly a labor of love. Thank you also for the opportunity to reflect on the past 10 years from my point of view. I would sit in rapt attention listening to all sorts of people doing the same thing, in fact, have earlier today and will continue to this weekend. It's a great privilege to take a stab at it myself. I can say in all honesty that 2 of the things most precious to me now I owe to blogging. 1, the clarity that I have as a parent, and 2, the opportunity I have to be doing the work I'm doing in support of LGBT families, both in my own community and online. I should note, by the way, that this is a photograph of the first community keynote, Voices of the Year by Ilan Morgan Schmutzy. My nose is in the house. You're in the house somewhere. Yeah. Okay, so it's not an exaggeration to say that all of this debt to Blogher really accrued. It began accruing on the Blogher stage 50 miles to the north of here. I don't know where north is right now. And 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I stood backstage waiting to read at that first community keynote, the first Voices of the Year. The ballroom was packed, but it was about a third as many people. Maybe about 900 to 1,000 folks. Backstage were a lot of really amazing people that I knew of but didn't know personally. And none of us knew what was about to happen, except that we all were really clear that it was a really damn good idea. And as the night was unfolding, it became clearer and clearer that that's the beating heart of the conference and an opportunity to see why we do what we do. And I'm very looking forward to you all hearing this tonight from the folks who are about to speak. That morning, I had spoken on a panel moderated by the inimitable Lindsay Ferrier, whose shoes you see now. There's really no reason why I have these picture of the shoes up, except for I just felt like I had to, right? Don't I have to? I think if God had feet, that God's feet would look a lot like this. That's all. Moving on. But thank you, Lindsay. Every blogger, I feel like it's a complete blogger if I've seen Lindsay and taken a photograph of her shoes. Okay. At any rate, the question that our panel was trying to take on was, is mommy blogging still radical? And I was only 2 years into blogging at that point, and I felt definitely, absolutely, of course. I mean, it was amazing, really. Any of us could take up these two incredible tools of communication, the essay and a photograph, mash them up with graphic design, and then do whatever we wanted with them. But the point wasn't a monologue sharing our own hearts and minds, but to stimulate a dialogue, to cultivate a salon, build a community, marshal support around something vitally necessary and life-changing. But the price of admission, not a distant editor's judgment, not a publisher's willingness to invest, just our own damn commitment, our passion, our chops, our honesty, and perhaps more than anything else, our willingness to try and fail in public and keep at it again and again. That kind of opportunity is breathtaking on the face of it, but even more so for a whole group of people with a lot to say and a long history of not being heard. Back then, I could only find a few dozen other LGBT parent blogs. I would hop from one to the next, sidebar, blog rolls, and links in the comments as my guide. Now there are hundreds and hundreds of individual blogs and some really excellent group-authored sites providing platforms for parents like me to explore all the richness, the samenesses, and the differences that queer parenting entails. Years ago, I felt like a lone herald with my purple crayon, drawing myself my own trim boat and then my own little sea with a nervous hand. Now there's countless wild crisscrossings, basically a riot of storylines, more than enough to provide a lifeline to someone reaching their hand into the inky deep of the internet to find one. My own blogging has waxed and waned, and it's been buffeted by all the kinds of things that are dilemmas that personal bloggers face. How do you keep writing through emotional pain? How do you protect the privacy of those around you and still say the truest, deepest things? How do you basically evolve the narrative of a blog when your life story expands past its original margins? Sometimes, and maybe even too often, the question is simply how to find the time when life is so big and so short. But no matter how long I pause as I consider these questions, I always return to writing, because no matter what it takes, no matter how late I have to stay to finish a post, and it's always late at night, I'm sure that's the case for most of us, the truth is that I always feel better after publishing a post. I have to work hard to make those words worth the reader's time, and that work that I do is basically a process that inevitably deepens me. It humbles me, and it steadies me. I'd say that the examined life of a blogger is way worth the effort it takes to live it. When my own blog has its 10-year anniversary in 2 years, I know that what will get me there, what will sustain me, will be the lessons that blogging and the people I've met at Blogher conferences in particular have taught me. So here they are, bundled in a group of 10, special for the occasion. 1, we are never alone. Regardless of how unique our circumstances, we will find someone akin to us online, even speaking in a voice we would swear was our own. This realization alone is more precious than the cash value of all the electronic devices in this room, times a million. I think we know that. Right? Yeah. Thank you. Going to my bailiwick, my neck of the internet, this breakdown in isolation is life-changing for LGBT people. Maybe you're a young person coming out in a socially conservative small town. Maybe you're a couple in a big city building a family, and knowing there's so many different ways, but none of them are easy. Maybe your kid came home from school crying because someone teased them for having 2 moms. You may not find someone in your home or in your community up or down the street who knows the answer. They may not know what you're going through, but you will find someone somewhere online. That is life-changing. 3, our differences separate us less than we think. In fact, they can be the very thing that joins us together. The dad bloggers I had initially expected to get all up in my grill about shoplifting their fatherhood, like, it's a zero-sum game, bub. Only so much dad to go around. I was going to grab my crotch, but I thought that would be a little bit okay, go ahead. Okay, sorry. I just had to do that once. Okay, it's gone. It's out. Okay. Okay, so sorry. I thought I was going to go off on Lindsay's shoes, but I didn't. Come back. Okay. Anyhow, but they weren't irate. I was really genuinely nervous about the title of my blog and where I was trying to find a place as a parent. But instead, dad bloggers got me, and they got me in ways I completely didn't expect. They welcomed me with open arms and a hearty "Hail fellow, well met," and it bowled me over. So Doug, John, Brian, Charlie, I love you, man! Okay, that's that. 4, we cannot see what others are capable of until we give them the chance. I was really worried at my first Blogger in 2008. I had no idea that there'd be so many women that I've never met, and not just women, but ladies, which is like a different category from women. That's complicated, but there's women and there's ladies. And I was kind of scared, and yet people were not just sympathetic, they were supportive. And I realized is that I wasn't seeing them. I was seeing my own fear on the inside of my shut eyelids. And when I stepped out onto that stage, 50 miles and 6 years away, I opened my eyes and looked. And I saw people listening with open hearts and open minds, and everything changed. What had begun as a mission for me to be seen became the first steps in a journey for me to learn how to really see others. 5, you will find allies in unexpected places. That summer of my first Blogger in 2008, the battle over Proposition 8 was really tearing this state apart. I met dozens of women at the conference and doggedly collected their cards, and then in the weeks following basically asked them all would they post my No on 8 fundraising button on their sidebar. It was sponsored through Act Blue, who didn't pay me to say this, by the way. I made almost nothing on my blog, by the way, just clarifying that. But that was an Act Blue fundraiser, and basically everyone did something. They either posted it, they directed people to it, and what's important to know is that turned out to be the most effective individual Act Blue fundraiser in California, more than Chaz Bono's Act Blue fundraiser, I'd like to note. No disrespect to Chaz, but it was amazing. And it was like $16,000, which isn't like a ton. It wasn't a corporate fundraiser, but it was an individual thing. And really what that represents, I mean, it didn't change the election, but realizing what the capacity to rally that really taught me a very important lesson, that this shit is real. Real. 6, we're creating culture with every blog post we publish. I wanted a parental name other than mother or father. I borrowed Baba and shared that in my blog, and then repeated it relentlessly enough that it actually gradually became a thing. It's entered the queer lexicon as a parental name for a butch, mannish, lesbian parent who'd rather not be called mama. And lo, these years later, I meet folks, young queer folks, who use the term as if it had always been there, as if folks like us could always find each other. Blogging did that. True story. Parenting, the 7th lesson here is that parenting will never be the same after blogging, and that's a fantastic thing. No parent will feel totally isolated. Imperfection is demonstrated, oftentimes even championed daily. All of us who feel ourselves to be anything less than ideal, which of course means all of us, are basically enabled to do this precious work of parenting with more help, less shame, and fuller hearts. That's huge, and what that means to our children, I think, is even huger. 8, microblogging and social media won't kill blogs, just won't. Anymore, yeah, right, yeah. It's super simple. Tapas has not killed the multi-course meal. Right? So there you go. Basically, every experience and idea can't all get crammed into a small space. Some can, but many, many can't. That's totally okay. The human attention span will be hacked away at mercilessly in the coming decades, but it will persevere, I promise you. 9, we will always be drawn to one another's stories. We always have been, since we've been able to tell them in whatever means we have, through language, through drawings on the wall of a cave. This medium itself here, the blog, is an exceedingly effective democratic vehicle for that. And that's going to keep it alive as long as we need to tell each other's stories and hear each other's stories. Finally, love and courage really do abound. They're coursing through all of us, especially the most ordinary of us. And we know this for a fact because we keep reading about it in each other's blogs day after day after day. So thank you all for helping teach me that, and please keep blogging.